Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the hospital ship Sanctuary. The huge white vessel moved through space toward a war zone. Red crosses painted on its sides told everyone this was a medical ship. Jake watched the stars through the big windows as his crew prepared for another rescue mission. The Sanctuary was the largest hospital ship humans had ever built. It had thousands of medical beds, surgery rooms, and healing machines. 800 doctors, nurses, and medical workers lived on the ship. They came from Earth to help anyone who needed medical care, no matter what species they were or which side of the war they fought for. Dr. Lisa Carter walked up to Jake. She was the head doctor on the ship. Her uniform was clean and white, with a medical badge on her chest. "Captain, we're getting emergency calls from the planet below. Millions of people need help. They don't have food or medicine." Jake looked at the reports on his screen. The planet Kepler 442b used to be peaceful. Now it was caught between two alien armies fighting each other. The Zelani Empire looked like tall lizards with green skin. The Korthak Collective were like giant bugs with hard shells. They had been fighting for 3 years. Their war had destroyed cities and forced people to run away from their homes. "How many people are sick down there?" Jake asked. "Too many to count," Lisa said sadly. "Children are dying from hunger. Old people can't get their medicine. The hospitals on the planet are broken or destroyed." Lieutenant Ben Hayes sat at the communication station. He was young but very good at his job. "Captain, I'm hearing radio calls for help from everywhere on the planet. They're begging for doctors and medical supplies," Jake nodded. This was why humans built hospital ships like the Sanctuary. When wars happened between alien species, humans stayed neutral. They didn't pick sides. Instead, they sent medical ships to help the victims. Every major government in the galaxy had signed the medical neutrality laws. These laws said that hospital ships could never be attacked. They were sacred. They were protected. Commander Ryan Torres, Jake's second in command, checked the ship's supplies. "We have enough medicine and food to help 50,000 people. Our doctors can work for weeks without stopping." Jake smiled. His crew was the best in the galaxy. They had volunteered to leave Earth and travel to dangerous places. They wanted to save lives, set course for the biggest refugee camp. "Send out our medical signal on all radio channels. I want every ship in this system to know we're here to help people, not fight." The Sanctuary moved closer to the planet. Its engines hummed quietly. Unlike warships, hospital ships were built for comfort and healing. The hallways were bright and clean. Medical equipment filled every room. The ship had gardens where patients could rest and heal. Dr. Carter prepared her medical teams. She had doctors who could treat any species in the galaxy. Human medicine was very advanced. They could fix injuries that would kill patients on other worlds. "Remember," she told her staff, "we treat everyone the same. It doesn't matter if they're Zelani, Korthak, or any other species. Pain is pain. Sickness is sickness." As the ship entered orbit around the planet, Jake could see the damage below. Cities were in ruins. Smoke rose from burning buildings. Millions of refugees lived in camps made of tents and metal sheets. They had no clean water, no electricity, and no hospitals. "This is worse than I thought," Ryan said, looking at the planet through the ship's cameras. Jake picked up the radio microphone. "This is Captain Morrison of the Earth Hospital ship Sanctuary. We are a medical vessel protected by galactic medical neutrality laws. We carry no weapons. We are here only to help sick and injured people. We will treat all patients equally, regardless of species or military side." The message went out to every ship and base in the system. Both Zelani and Korthak forces received it. According to galactic law, they had to let the hospital ship do its work. For hundreds of years, all civilized species had agreed that doctors and medical ships were off limits during wars. Lieutenant Amy Foster monitored the ship's sensors. She watched for any threats to the Sanctuary. "Captain, I see Zelani patrol ships keeping their distance. They're respecting our neutrality." "Good," Jake said. "What about Korthak ships?" "A few scout vessels, but they're also staying away." "Everyone seems to understand we're here to help." The first shuttle launched from the Sanctuary toward the planet. It carried medical supplies and a team of doctors. Dr. Carter was on that shuttle. She wanted to see the worst cases first and bring them back to the ship for treatment. Jake watched the shuttle disappear into the planet's atmosphere. He felt proud of his crew and his mission. Humans were still new to galactic politics. They had only joined the Galactic Council 50 years ago. But they had quickly become known for their medical skills and their willingness to help others. Other species respected humans for this. When wars broke out, everyone knew that human hospital ships would arrive soon. They would save lives that no one else could save. They would treat enemies as friends. They would never give up on a patient. "Captain," Ben said from his station, "we're getting thank you messages from the refugee camps. They're so happy we're here." Jake smiled. This was what made all the danger worth it. Every life they saved, every child they healed, every family they reunited made their mission important. The sanctuary settled into orbit. Its medical bays prepared to receive the first patients. Doctors and nurses got ready for what they knew would be days of non-stop work. They would save as many lives as they could. Jake looked out at the stars one more time before going to help with the medical operations. He had no idea that forces were moving against his ship. He didn't know that some people in the galaxy thought the medical neutrality laws were just words on paper. He couldn't imagine that anyone would be evil enough to attack a hospital ship. The sanctuary and its crew were about to face the unthinkable. Their peaceful mission was about to become a tragedy that would change the galaxy forever. But for now, they focused on what they did best, saving lives and bringing hope to a war-torn world. Dr. Lisa Carter worked in the main medical room of the sanctuary. Injured people lay on beds all around her. Solani children with burns from radiation, Korthak workers who hadn't eaten in weeks, other species caught in the war between the two armies. The hospital ship's advanced machines could heal injuries that would be impossible to fix anywhere else. Lisa moved from bed to bed, checking each patient. A young Zalani girl had lost her parents in a bombing. Her green skin was pale from blood loss. Lisa used a human medical device to fix the child's internal injuries. The little girl would live and grow up healthy. "Dr. Carter," called Nurse Jenny Walsh, "we have more patients coming up from the planet." Lisa nodded. They had been working for 18 hours straight, but nobody complained. This was their job. This was why they came to dangerous places in the galaxy, to save lives. Commander Ryan Torres coordinated the rescue efforts from the bridge. Shuttles flew back and forth between the ship and the planet below. Each trip brought more sick and injured people to safety. "Captain Morrison," Ryan reported, "we've brought 400 critical patients to the ship. Our medical teams on the surface are asking for more supplies." Jake looked at the reports. Everything was going well. The sanctuary was doing exactly what it was built to do. Healing the victims of war, making the galaxy a more peaceful place one patient at a time. Lieutenant Amy Foster watched her screens carefully. Her job was to watch for any dangers to the ship. Suddenly her screen showed something that made her heart race. "Captain," she said with worry in her voice, "I'm seeing multiple Korthak heavy warships approaching our position." "Big ones, they're coming fast," Jake frowned. "Are they responding to our medical neutrality signals?" Amy checked her equipment. "No, sir. I'm broadcasting our protected status on all channels, but they're not answering." The Korthak ships were dark and angular, like the insect creatures who built them. They moved in attack formation toward the hospital ship. Admiral Vexthai commanded the Korthak fleet from his flagship. He had received reports that the human hospital ship was secretly carrying weapons to the Zalani forces. The reports were lies, made up by extremists in his own military who wanted the war to continue, but Vexthai believed them. Jake grabbed the radio microphone. "This is Captain Morrison of the Earth Hospital Ship Sanctuary. We are a protected medical vessel operating under galactic medical neutrality laws. We carry no weapons and pose no threat to any military forces. Please acknowledge." The Korthak ships kept coming. Their weapon systems powered up. Red lights blinked on their hulls as they prepared to fire. "Captain," Amy said, her voice shaking, "they're locking weapons onto us." Jake couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Keep broadcasting our medical status. They have to honor the neutrality laws. Every species in the galaxy signed them." Down in the medical bay, Dr. Carter was saving the life of a Korthak soldier who had been injured by his own people. She didn't know that ships from his species were about to attack her. She focused on stopping his bleeding and repairing his damaged organs. The first missile hit the sanctuary without warning. The explosion tore through the medical bay where Lisa was working. The lights went out. Emergency alarms screamed through the ship. Patients and medical staff were thrown across the room as the ship shook. "Hull breach on Deck 4. Ryan shouted over the noise. "Medical Bay Alpha is destroyed." More missiles hit the defenseless hospital ship. The Korthak warships fired again and again. Explosions ripped through the sanctuary's white hull. The ship had no shields, no weapons, no way to fight back. It was built only for healing. Dr. Carter was thrown against a wall by the second explosion. Blood ran down her face from a head wound, but she ignored her own injuries. Around her, patients were screaming in pain and fear. Some of the people she had just healed were hurt again by the attack. "We have to evacuate the patients," she told her medical team. "Get the children first." Jake watched in horror as his ship was destroyed around him. All hands abandoned ship. Emergency evacuation of all patients and medical personnel. But Dr. Carter refused to leave. She saw a group of young Zilani children trapped under fallen equipment. These were the same children she had been treating for radiation sickness. They were too weak to move by themselves. "Doctor, we have to go." Nurse Walsh grabbed Carter's arm. "I won't leave them," Lisa said firmly. She pushed the heavy metal beam off the children and started carrying them toward the escape pods one by one. The attack continued for 12 terrible minutes. Korthik missiles tore the hospital ship apart piece by piece. Hull sections broke away and floated into space. Medical equipment that had cost millions of credits was destroyed in seconds. Most importantly, hundreds of innocent people were dying. Emergency teams tried to evacuate as many patients as possible, but there weren't enough escape pods for everyone. The sanctuary had been built to save lives, not to evacuate quickly during an attack. Dr. Carter was carrying the last Zilani child toward an escape pod when the ceiling collapsed. She threw herself over the child, protecting him with her own body. The heavy debris crushed her, but the child lived. Jake was forced to evacuate to the bridge escape pod as his ship died around him. Through the windows, he could see the Korthak warship still firing at the wreckage. They wanted to make sure nothing survived. When the attack finally ended, the sanctuary was a burning wreck floating in space. Of the 800 crew members and 1,200 patients aboard, only 340 people survived. The rest were dead, including Dr. Lisa Carter and most of her medical team. The escape pods drifted in space, sending emergency signals. Jake sat in his pod staring at the remains of his ship. He couldn't understand how this had happened. How could anyone attack a hospital ship? How could they murder doctors and patients who were protected by galactic law? The Korthak ships had already left the area. They flew away as if nothing had happened, as if they hadn't just committed the worst war crime in galactic history. News of the attack spread quickly across the galaxy. Every species with radio equipment heard about it within hours. A hospital ship had been destroyed. Hundreds of medical workers had been murdered while trying to save lives. The sacred laws of medical neutrality had been broken. Jake floated in his escape pod, surrounded by the debris of his ship and the bodies of his crew. He thought about Dr. Carter, who had died protecting alien children. He thought about all the patients who would never get the medical care they needed. And he wondered what Earth would do when they learned that someone had attacked their healers. He didn't have to wait long to find out. The news of the sanctuary's destruction spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every major news network showed the same terrible images: the burning wreckage of the hospital ship, escape pods floating in space, and the bodies of doctors who had died trying to save lives. Species from every corner of the galaxy watched in shock and horror. Ambassador Helen Rodriguez sat in her office on the Galactic Council space station. As Earth's representative to the galaxy's government, she had seen many terrible things during her career. But this was different. This was an attack on everything civilized species believed in. Her assistant, David Palmer, brought her the latest reports. "Ma'am, we have confirmation. 340 survivors out of 2,000 people on board. Dr. Carter and most of the senior medical staff are confirmed dead." Helen closed her eyes. She had known Lisa Carter personally. The doctor had been one of Earth's best and brightest. She had volunteered to risk her life helping strangers in a war zone. Now she was dead because someone had decided that medical neutrality was just words on paper. "Call an emergency session of the Galactic Council," Helen ordered. "Full assembly. I want every species represented." Within hours, representatives from across the galaxy gathered in the Great Council chamber. The room was filled with dozens of different species: the tall, elegant Altarians with their blue skin, the rock-like granite folk from the core worlds, the energy beings from the outer rim, and many others. All of them were talking about the same thing: the attack on the human hospital ship. Helen stood at the human podium. Her voice was calm, but everyone could hear the anger underneath. For 3 years, humanity has provided medical aid to all sides in the Zilani-Korthak conflict. We have asked for nothing in return except respect for the ancient laws that protect those who heal. The chamber was completely silent. Representatives who usually argued and debated were listening carefully to every word. Yesterday, Helen continued, the Korthak Collective decided that these laws don't apply to them. They attacked a defenseless hospital ship. They murdered doctors, nurses, and patients. They killed children who were being treated for radiation sickness. The Korthak representative, Minister Kretak, stood up. He was a large insect-like creature with multiple arms and compound eyes. Our intelligence indicated the vessel was carrying military supplies to Zelani forces. It was a legitimate military target. Helen's eyes blazed with fury. Intelligence? You destroyed a hospital ship based on intelligence? Show us your evidence. Show us proof that our medical ship was carrying weapons. Kretak clicked his mandibles nervously. The intelligence is classified for security reasons. That's not good enough, said the Altarian representative, speaking in their musical voice. You cannot murder healers and claim secret intelligence. Show us the evidence or admit you committed a war crime. Other representatives began shouting at the Korthak delegate. The Granite Folk representative, whose people were known for their calm wisdom, spoke slowly and clearly. In 3,000 years of galactic civilization, no one has ever attacked a marked medical vessel. This is not war. This is barbarism. But the real shock came when Admiral Kevin Palmer appeared as a hologram in the chamber. He was the commander of Earth's defense fleet, and his uniform was covered with medals from a dozen campaigns. His face was stone-cold serious. Members of the Galactic Council, he began. The medical neutrality laws were written in the blood of countless species who learned that some things must remain sacred. The Korthak Collective has chosen to break this sacred trust. The chamber was so quiet you could hear the air recycling systems humming. Therefore, Admiral Palmer continued, humanity formally withdraws all medical support from Korthak space, effective immediately. No human doctor, nurse, or medical technician will treat Korthak patients. No human medical supplies will be sold to Korthak worlds. Representatives gasped. Human medicine was the most advanced in the galaxy. Korthak soldiers depended on human-made healing devices and drugs, but Palmer wasn't finished. Furthermore, we are implementing a complete economic blockade of all Korthak worlds. No human vessel will trade with, transport goods for, or provide any services to the Korthak Collective. The Korthak representative stood up in panic. You cannot do this. Billions of our people depend on human trade. You should have thought of that before you attacked our hospital ship, Palmer replied coldly. The economic impact would be devastating. Humans had become crucial suppliers of rare computer parts, advanced technology, and medical compounds. Without human trade, the Korthak war machine would grind to a halt within months. And to ensure that no other species ever again considers attacking a medical vessel, Palmer said, Earth is deploying the home fleet to escort all human hospital ships. Any attack on a human medical vessel will be considered an act of war against Earth itself. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. The home fleet was Earth's most powerful military force. It had never left the solar system before. Now it would escort hospital ships throughout the galaxy. Other species began to understand what they were witnessing. Humans were peaceful by nature. They preferred trade and diplomacy to war. But when their core values were attacked, they became something entirely different. The Valerian ambassador, a cat-like creature with silver fur, spoke quietly to her aide. The humans have drawn a line in space. Attack their healers and face their warriors. Over the following days, more species announced their support for the human position. The Altarians suspended all trade with the Korthak Collective. The Granite Folk closed their space lanes to Korthak ships. Even neutral species that usually stayed out of conflicts began to distance themselves from the Korthak. The economic pressure was immediate and crushing. Korthak stock markets crashed. Their military supply lines began to break down. Factories that made weapons and ships couldn't get the rare materials they needed from human traders. Korthak government officials tried desperately to negotiate. They offered to pay huge amounts of money as compensation. They promised to punish those responsible for the attack. They begged for mercy, but Admiral Palmer's response never changed. You broke the sacred laws of medicine. Face the consequences. Captain Jake Morrison, recovering from his injuries on a medical station, watched the news reports with grim satisfaction. The galaxy was learning that humans kept their promises. When they said they would protect medical workers, they meant it. When they said certain things were sacred, they would defend those things with their lives. Dr. Carter and her medical team had died believing that healing was a universal right. Now their deaths were teaching the entire galaxy that some lines could never be crossed. The Korthak Collective was about to learn that humans had long memories and longer reach. The attack on the sanctuary would have consequences that would reshape the balance of power throughout the galaxy. And it was only the beginning. 6 months had passed since the destruction of the sanctuary, and the Korthak Collective was dying. The human blockade had proven more devastating than anyone could have imagined. Without access to human technology and medicine, the Korthak war machine was falling apart piece by piece. Captain Steve Murphy stood on the bridge of the UHMS Hope, the first human hospital ship to return to the disputed zone since the attack. Unlike the sanctuary, the Hope was not alone. 12 human warships surrounded the medical vessel, including the massive dreadnought Constitution under Admiral Palmer's direct command. The Hope looked identical to the destroyed sanctuary: white hull, red crosses, medical equipment visible through transparent sections. But this time, anyone who even thought about attacking it would face the full might of Earth's home fleet. Colonel Maria Santos commanded the Marine forces aboard the escort ships. She monitored tactical displays from the Constitution's bridge, watching every ship movement in the system. Admiral, Korthak fleet elements are maintaining distance. They're not even approaching scanner range. Admiral Palmer nodded grimly. They've learned their lesson, but we'll stay ready anyway. The galaxy had indeed learned something important about humans during those 6 months. When their traitors were threatened, humans could be reasoned with. When their diplomats were insulted, humans would negotiate. But when their healers were murdered, humans became something else entirely. Dr. Alex Thompson had volunteered to be the chief medical officer aboard the Hope. He had specifically requested the assignment to honor Dr. Carter's memory. Like her, he was determined to treat any patient who needed help, regardless of species or which side of the war they fought for. The first shuttles launched from the Hope toward the refugee camps below. But this time, human fighter ships escorted every medical shuttle. Marine units in powered armor accompanied every medical team. The message was clear: attack our healers and our warriors will respond. On Korthak worlds throughout their empire, the effects of the human blockade were becoming impossible to ignore. Factories shut down because they couldn't get the rare quantum processors that humans manufactured. Hospitals ran out of advanced medicines that only human companies produced. Military shipyards couldn't repair their warships without human-made components. Admiral Vestan, the Korthak commander who had ordered the attack on the sanctuary, sat in his darkened office reviewing reports. Everything was falling apart. His fleet was operating at 30% effectiveness because so many ships needed repairs they couldn't get. His soldiers were getting sick from diseases that human medicine could easily cure. "Sir," his aide reported nervously, "another 3 worlds have requested to surrender to Zilani forces rather than continue fighting. They say they can't defend themselves without proper equipment." Vestan slammed his clawed hand on his desk. "How are we supposed to know the humans would react this way? They're just traders and doctors." But that was exactly the mistake the Korthak had made. They had seen human, peaceful nature and assumed it meant weakness. They didn't understand that humans could be both gentle healers and fierce warriors, depending on the situation. The Korthak government had tried everything to end the blockade. They offered to pay massive reparations to the families of those killed on the sanctuary. They promised to change their military laws to better protect medical ships. They even offered to surrender the officers responsible for the attack. But Admiral Palmer's response never varied. "You broke the sacred laws of medicine. Face the consequences." Other species watched in amazement as the humans maintained their blockade with perfect discipline. Not a single human ship broke ranks to make an illegal trade deal. Not one human doctor went to help Korthak patients despite the suffering they could see on the news. When humans drew a line, they held it absolutely. The war between the Zilani Empire and the Korthak Collective had turned completely around. With human support continuing for the Zilani and completely cut off for the Korthak, the outcome was no longer in doubt. Zilani forces advanced on world after world as Korthak defenses crumbled. Dr. Thompson worked in the medical bay of the Hope, treating the same kinds of patients that Dr. Carter had died protecting. Zilani children with radiation burns, Korthak civilians caught in the fighting, refugees from a dozen other species who had been trapped in the war zone. "Doctor," Nurse Patricia Hill asked, "what should we do with the Korthak patients? Some of them are soldiers." Thompson didn't hesitate. "We treat them the same as everyone else. Dr. Carter would have wanted it that way. We're here to heal, not to judge." This was perhaps the most remarkable thing about the human response. Even while their military enforced a crushing blockade against the Korthak government, their medical ships still treated Korthak patients with the same care as anyone else. They could separate their anger at the government from their duty to heal the innocent. Word spread throughout the galaxy about this strange human ability to hold both mercy and justice in their hearts at the same time. The Valerian Syndicate quietly updated their military protocols to explicitly forbid any action against human medical vessels. The Thangor Empire issued new standing orders that human hospital ships were to be given absolute right-of-way through all their space. Even species that had never been particularly friendly to humans began to reconsider their positions. The Draconian hegemony, known for their aggressive military culture, sent a formal message to Earth expressing their respect for human principles. Captain Murphy received regular reports about the escort fleet's effectiveness. "Admiral, this is our 15th medical mission since the Hope entered service. Not a single hostile action against our medical operations." "Good," Palmer replied. "The galaxy is learning that we mean what we say." But the humans weren't done yet. In a move that surprised everyone, Earth announced the construction of 50 new hospital ships, each one larger and more advanced than the Sanctuary had been. More importantly, Earth was training medical personnel from other species in human healing techniques and giving them human-built medical equipment. The message was clear. If you respected medical neutrality, humans would share their healing knowledge freely. If you attacked their healers, you would face consequences that would last for generations. The Korthak Collective's new government, installed after the old regime collapsed under the economic pressure, sent desperate messages to Earth begging for a chance to negotiate. But Admiral Palmer had made his position clear from the beginning. When every person responsible for the attack on the Sanctuary stands trial for war crimes, he announced, when every family of our murdered medical personnel receives justice, when the galaxy has new laws that will prevent this from ever happening again, then we will consider lifting the blockade. The Korthak had no choice but to agree. They began arresting the officers who had planned and carried out the attack. They offered to pay any amount of compensation Earth demanded. They agreed to sign the strongest medical neutrality laws ever written, but even as they negotiated, everyone knew the real lesson had already been learned. Humans were peaceful by choice, not by weakness. They valued healing above conquest, mercy above revenge, but they would defend those values with a determination that no force in the galaxy could break. The attack on the Sanctuary had been intended to eliminate a minor obstacle in a local war. Instead, it had awakened something in humanity that the galaxy had never seen before, and that awakening was changing everything. 1 year after the attack on the Sanctuary, the galaxy had changed forever. Admiral Vexthai stood in chains before a special war crimes tribunal on the neutral world of Haven, Prime. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy watched as the Korthak officer, who had ordered the destruction of a hospital ship, faced justice. The evidence against him was overwhelming. His own officers had finally revealed the truth. The intelligence about weapons aboard the Sanctuary had been completely fabricated. Extremist elements within the Korthak military had created false reports to justify continuing their war against the Zalani Empire. Vexthai had believed the lies and ordered the attack that killed hundreds of innocent people. "Admiral Vexthai," the chief judge announced, "you are found guilty of war crimes against medical personnel, murder of protected non-combatants, and violation of the Galactic medical neutrality laws. You are sentenced to life imprisonment on the prison world of Titan 7. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the gallery, watching the sentencing. He had survived the destruction of his ship, but the memory of that day would stay with him forever, seeing Dr. Carter die protecting alien children, watching his crew and patients burned alive by enemy missiles, floating in space among the wreckage of everything he had worked to build. But today felt different. Today felt like justice. The Korthak Collective's new government had surrendered every person involved in the attack. They had agreed to pay massive reparations to the families of those killed. Most importantly, They had signed the new medical protection laws that the galaxy now called the Morrison Accords. Ambassador Helen Rodriguez stood before the Galactic Council to announce the new agreement. The Morrison Accords represent the strongest protection for medical personnel and facilities in galactic history. Every signatory species pledges to defend medical neutrality with their full military power. The new laws were comprehensive and absolute. Medical vessels would carry special transponders that automatically identified them to any scanning system. Hospital ships would be given priority passage through all space lanes. Any attack on medical personnel would result in immediate intervention by all treaty signatories. But most importantly, the Morrison Accords established the Galactic Medical Protection Force. Human warships would patrol known conflict zones, ready to defend medical operations from any species. The galaxy had learned that humans were uniquely suited for this role. They had the military power to enforce the laws and the moral commitment to never abuse that power. Captain Steve Murphy stood on the bridge of the Hope as it completed its latest mission. The ship had just finished establishing a permanent medical facility on Kepler 442b, the same world where the sanctuary had been destroyed. The refugee camps had been transformed into modern hospitals, staffed by volunteers from dozens of species. Captain, Dr. Thompson reported from the medical bay, "We've successfully treated over 10,000 patients this month. The new facility can handle cases we would have had to bring to the ship before." Murphy smiled. The Hope had become a symbol of humanity's commitment to healing. In the year since its launch, the hospital ship had saved more lives than any medical vessel in galactic history, and it had done so under the protection of human warships that made sure no one would ever again attack a medical mission. The changes went far beyond new laws and treaties. Species throughout the galaxy had begun to see humans differently. Before the attack on the sanctuary, humans were respected as skilled traders and capable diplomats. Now they were recognized as something more: the guardians of galactic civilization's most important values. The Altarian Council, the galaxy's oldest democratic government, issued a formal statement. "Humanity has shown us that true strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the willingness to protect what is sacred." Even former enemies acknowledged the change. The draconian hegemony, whose warrior culture had often clashed with human peacekeeping efforts, sent an official message to Earth. "We have learned that there are different kinds of courage. The courage to heal is as valuable as the courage to fight." Dr. Thompson completed his medical log as the Hope prepared for its next mission. He thought about Dr. Carter and the crew of the sanctuary who had died a year ago. Their sacrifice had accomplished something that no human warship could have achieved alone. It had shown the galaxy who humans really were when their deepest values were threatened. Medical log. Dr. Alex Thompson, he recorded. "The sanctuary carried no weapons and sought no glory. Yet its destruction taught the galaxy a lesson that will last for generations. We are healers first, but we are also guardians of that healing. We will never let anyone forget the price of threatening those who dedicate their lives to preserving life." The war between the Zilani Empire and the Korthak Collective had ended 6 months earlier. The Korthak surrender had been inevitable once their military collapsed under the human blockade. But more importantly, both species had learned to value medical neutrality in ways they never had before. Former enemies now worked together in the medical facilities that humans had built throughout the former war zone. Zilani doctors taught Korthak nurses how to treat radiation poisoning. Korthak engineers helped Zilani scientists develop new healing technologies. The hatred that had fueled 3 years of war was slowly being replaced by cooperation in the cause of healing. Ambassador Rodriguez addressed the dedication ceremony for the Dr. Lisa Carter Memorial Hospital, built on the site of the largest refugee camp on Kepler 442b. Representatives from every species in the galaxy attended the ceremony, including high-ranking officials from both the Zilani Empire and the reformed Korthak government. Dr. Carter and her fellow crew members died believing that healing was a universal right. Rodriguez said as she unveiled the memorial statue, "Today we ensure their sacrifice was not in vain. This hospital will treat patients from any species, any world, any background. It will stand as proof that some things truly are sacred." The memorial showed Dr. Carter shielding the Zilani children she had died protecting. The inscription read, "In memory of those who gave their lives so that others might live." May their sacrifice remind us that in a galaxy full of war, healing is the greatest victory. Admiral Palmer, now serving as the first commander of the Galactic Medical Protection Force, watched the ceremony from the bridge of the Constitution. His fleet had grown to over 100 ships, all dedicated to protecting medical operations throughout the galaxy. They had intervened in 17 conflicts over the past year, and not a single medical worker had been harmed under their protection. The galaxy had learned that humans viewed the protection of healers not as a diplomatic courtesy, but as a sacred duty. They had shown that they would enforce medical neutrality with the same determination that other species reserved for protecting their homeworlds, but perhaps the most remarkable change was in how humans themselves had evolved. Before the attack on the sanctuary, Earth's military had been primarily defensive. Now the home fleet patrolled star systems hundreds of light years from Earth, not for conquest or profit, but to protect the innocent and defend the principles that made civilization possible. Captain Morrison, now commanding a new hospital ship called the Sanctuary II, reflected on how much had changed in a single year. The galaxy was more peaceful than it had been in centuries. Medical knowledge was being shared freely between species. Wars still happened, but now they were fought with respect for medical neutrality that would have seemed impossible before. The original sanctuary was destroyed, he wrote in his final report, but its mission lives on in every hospital ship that now travels safely through the stars. We learned that sometimes the greatest victory comes not from superior firepower, but from the absolute unwillingness to compromise on what matters most. The galaxy would never forget the lesson of the hospital ship that changed everything. Humans were peaceful by choice, but they would defend their choice with a strength that no enemy could break. They valued healing above conquest, mercy above revenge, and the protection of innocence above all else. And if anyone ever forgot that lesson, the home fleet stood ready to remind them that some things truly are sacred.